Greetings, my glorious Adeptus Custodes. Today I will tell you the truth. And it is, alas, not the truth that is known in every corner of the Imperium, for our dark past is full of bitterness and suffering. Well, many of you are wondering how I know so much about the universe. Why do secrets hidden from even the most loyal servants of the Imperium lie within the pages of this diary? Events so far in the past and so far in the future. Well, I cannot tell the whole truth, not even to you, my loyal Custodes. I can only say that the events on Molech and my work with artifacts from the dark age of technology are to blame. In my research, I have seen the events of many worlds and eras of countless galaxies, but I never knew what it was. The Immaterium's desire to warp my mind, or just childish fantasies and nightmares, and nothing more. Magnus the Red was a truly unique Primarch. All of the Emperor's sons were transcendent beings, created not only from physical matter, but also from psychic energy that gave some of them superhuman strength and allowed others to control the warp either overtly or subconsciously in the form of the gift of foresight, supernatural secrecy, or an aura of majesty that outshone any mortal. Of all the brothers, however, Magnus the Red was the most inscrutable, a Psyker of unheard-of power. Magnus's very essence was seething with a psychic potential so powerful that even his material body seemed more the result of willpower or a reflection of a state of mind than a physical constant, and those upon whom his cyclopean gaze felt their thoughts and natures become more transparent to the Scarlet King than glass, and the most hidden secrets were revealed. In battle, Magnus the Red fought like a mythical deity, enveloped by the fire that fluttered behind him like a burning cloak, his gesture disintegrating all matter. Armies of ordinary mortals, powerless before the Primarch, fell to their knees, weeping because of the nightmares dancing before their eyes. It was said that he saw the ways of the future, and no trick or stratagem of warfare could deceive the Primarch of the Thousand Suns. But such power came at the price of suspicion and fear, even from those who called him brother. For Magnus, however, destruction and war were only means to an end. A man of superior intellect and an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, he saw himself and his legion as creators of the future. Others might think they were working for humanity, or even the ideals of the Imperium. But Magnus always saw a different path. For him, the Great Crusade, and every step on its bloody road was a stepping stone from the darkness of ignorance to the light of intelligence and knowledge. His chief aspiration was a second ascension, from the earthly limits of human reason to the transcendent potential of the psychic race. Obsession and faith compelled Magnus to go all in, and they would also ultimately doom him, along with his legion, to future damnation. Magnus arrived at Prospero as a comet, falling from the night heavens. The sages and masters of Tisca looked up and saw his fall like a fiery wound that split the darkness, a line drawn from the sky to the heart of Tisca. It is said that where his body collapsed, the earth split, marble flowed like liquid silver, and the dreams of every man, woman, and child on the planet were suddenly filled with a flash of light and sensation. Mixed cries of horror and amazement swept through the city. These and many other signs were recorded in great detail by Master Tiski, even though their meanings were contradictory. No one doubted that a child falling from the heavens, found without a scratch in the burning crater from its fall, could only portend great change. Though for good or ill, none of them knew. The answer came centuries later, when Tisca and all its inhabitants had turned to ash and the stars were hidden behind storms of poison clouds. Magnus grew up among the people of Tisca, learning the lessons of the masters there and surpassing them in all areas of mental self-discipline, knowledge, and aspiration. His chief mentor was a man named Aemon, who might otherwise have been the first scholar among his people, but his virtues were not limited to the intellectual alone. While the others might have been envious to see a student surpass their own accomplishments, it was as if Aemon realized that Magnus was someone far greater than he would ever be himself, and therefore sought not just to give his mentee knowledge, but to teach him wisdom. As Magnus's mind and abilities grew by leaps and bounds, he tried to instill caution in him, to temper his genius with modesty. But there came a time when Magnus could no longer be restricted, and so the student became a master in every sense. Magnus soared to the top of Prospero's government circles and revolutionized the civilization that adopted him. He refined and expanded the traditions of the past, elevating them along with the people of Tiska to unprecedented heights of intellectual and mental achievement. Based on techniques of mental control, he created the 5 cults of Prospero. In the center of Tiska, pyramids and towers rose higher and higher. The unprecedented development of philosophical thought, the deciphering of ancient knowledge, and the unraveling of numerous mysteries became like the blowing of a fresh sea wind. Tiska blossomed as never before, led by Magnus, the Scarlet King of the Dream Empire. Magnus had such influence in the warp that it didn't take very long before I found him. I don't know if the rumors that Magnus had been waiting for me to arrive, unlike the rest of his brothers, but when the Primarch saw the dots in the sky, which were actually the ships that had entered orbit, he had a look of joy and relief on his face. He took the same warrior on Prospero, and we had a long conversation as if we were old friends and had been in contact for years. Magnus gladly took command of his legion and donned his armor. What he saw then, and what he encountered, made his heart bleed. By the time the Ixtwith Legion reunited with their lord, the war and the changing of the flesh had left deep scars on him. So many now slept in stasis, crippled by wounds or mutations, that when the Legion came calling on Prospero, only a few thousand legionnaires knelt before Magnus. It is said that the bond between the Primarch and his genetic sons surpasses even that of father and child. The bond between beings like Magnus and his psychic genetic children was even stronger, for from the moment of their reunion, Primarch and Legion seemed to be extensions of each other in thought, opinion, and viewpoint. At last, Magnus had found disciples and followers capable of accepting his teachings and following the path he envisioned for humanity. However, even as Magnus took command of the Legion and declared Prospero his home, the 1,000 Sons continued to succumb to the flesh alteration at a steadily increasing rate, as if the appearance of a genetic lord had triggered the final, terrible phase of the curse cycle. Faced with disaster, Magnus turned all his knowledge, strength, and skill to finding a cure for the curse that was killing his sons. This was not just an act of patronizing his children, but some suggest a test that the Emperor himself had arranged for his most unusual of sons. What happened next is left to conjecture, or to judge by the shadow it has cast since then on the present. Magnus found the cure and saved the Legion. No one knew how he did it then, for the Scarlet King was so powerful that even if he had given the answer, few, including his brothers, could begin to understand it. Now, because of the suspicions left by the scars of betrayal, it seems likely that in order to save his sons, Magnus delved too deeply into what mankind should not know, and perhaps in the end, the deliverance condemned them to an even worse fate. Magnus saved the Legion, but at great cost. Of the few thousand sons who could walk, and those who slept in stasis, even fewer survived the rescue. As at the founding, they were again numbered at 1,000 warriors, and whether the accuracy of this number was a strange coincidence or an occult design is left to speculation. This number would follow the Ixtwith Legion throughout its history, repeating itself in cycles of almost total annihilation and rebirth. It is easy to write such a phenomenon off as coincidence, but when speaking of the nature of my creations and the 1,000 Sons in particular, coincidence should be viewed with suspicion. Around the same time, during the Great Crusade, the Primarch showed himself to be an experienced and astute warlord. He was particularly interested in forgotten cultures and cults that practiced cosmic sorcery and communication with the warp. The Emperor warned his son of the harmful effects of the Immaterium, but that did not stop him from structuring and creating an entire book dedicated to Psycherism, the Book of Magnus. The further the Primarch went in his conquests, the more insane, warp-altered creatures he encountered. Magnus the Red was saddened and troubled by this, as the creatures' powers were similar to his. In addition, the brothers, especially Mordorian and Leman Russ, did not trust the Psyker, which greatly aggravated relations between the Primarchs. The farther the Great Crusade traveled from Terra, the more strange warp-influenced creatures it encountered. This naturally gave Magnus a bad reputation, as his sorcery resembled the powers used by the enemies of the Imperium. The resulting distrust and contradictions between the Thousand Sons and the other Legions Astartes became so great that it required my personal intervention. To resolve the dispute over the need for psychic powers in the legions of the Cosmodesta, I called a gathering for debate on the planet Nicaea. After the debates were over, I sided with the opponents of the use of psychic powers in the Legions Astartes, issued the Edict of Nicaea that the Legion Bibliariums should be dissolved and sorcery banned. The shock of the decision spread throughout the armies of the Great Crusade, but none felt it more than the Thousand Sons. At least that's what it was supposed to be. After the Council of Nicaea, the Legion rejoined the campaign with the exception of Magnus himself, who was hiding in Prospero's great libraries, engaged in some business he had hidden from his brothers and even his sons. For over 3 years, Prospero's warriors fought the old-fashioned way, bolter and blade, not openly using the powers they had been so proud of before. Even without Magnus to teach them sorcery, during this brief lull, the warriors of the Thousand Sons brought more and more worlds into harmony. Many saw the Legion's success as proof that the Emperor had made a wise decision. In the years that followed, however, speculation arose that the use of the psychic arts had become a secret, hidden by the Exiv Legion from all others, that they had denied the Emperor's edict from the beginning. Of course, these claims could not now be confirmed, and the subsequent actions of the Thousand Sons made them unimportant. In any case, it cannot be denied that tragedy followed, though we cannot say for certain who was the true culprit for the actions of both the Primarch, the Legion, and perhaps even mine.